You all know what they saw. They saw what we saw. They saw the frail elderly man who needed help getting off the stage. They're just too chicken shit to tell us about it because they accurately deduced that he could still be the Democratic nominee and they don't want to ding him up. Maybe you give Barbara a pass. Who gives a damn what this singer saw or says? But you know what? Jimmy Kimmel happens to be employed by ABC, which happens to have a rather large news organization. And he has been one of President Trump's most vocal critics. Where are you, Jimmy? On vacation? Not good enough. You can still use your thumbs to send out a tweet. You could set the record straight right now, but you won't.
What happens when Joe Rogan and Rogan and Kelly join forces and Jimmy Kimmel ends up in crosshairs? Spoiler alert, it wasn't a roast. It was a full-blown takedown. This wasn't your typical late-night jab fest. It felt more like an emergency resuscitation attempt on Kimmel's credibility. And let's just say the patient wasn't looking too healthy. Megan came in with icy precision. Rogan brought the no-filter truth bombs, and Jimmy got lit up like a Christmas tree. But not in the festive way. This wasn't comedy. It was carnage. Kimmel strolled into it like it was amateur hour, and he paid the price. Zingers flew. Egos cracked. And by the end, he resembled a toasted marshmallow more than a seasoned talk show host. What did he say to trigger such a reaction? Oh, you'll see. It's messier than a 2 a.m. group chat meltdown.
All of a sudden, the ideology shifts because so many people are compromised by this very thing that we were talking about before. The very thing that they use to control the media in terms of the news, they use it to control the media in terms of late-night talk shows and monologues as well. It's the same influence because they're the same sponsors. The same people are spending the same money on the same networks. And it has an impact. If it affects your livelihood and affects your future and your ability to do this thing that you love doing, which is hosting a talk show, and you're doing it on a network that is paid for by that money, guess what? That affects...
Back in the day, Jimmy Kimmel was a class clown of late-night TV, beer-soaked skits, raunchy laughs, zero shame. He thrived in the frat boy era of comedy, high-fiving through fart jokes and riding the wave of reckless humor. Fast forward to now, and he's rebranded himself as a moral compass of Hollywood, delivering polished outrage with furrowed brows, as if we've all forgotten the guy he used to be. Make it make sense. Enter Joe Rogan, part MMA hype man, part podcast empire, part bulldozer for fake energy. He doesn't tiptoe, he stomps. And when he teams up with Rogan and Kelly, it's not a casual critique. It's a tactical strike. They didn't just toss shade. They flipped the spotlight on Kimmel and lit the whole narrative on fire. No whispering, no insider euphemisms. They said it loud, proud, and with receipts. Rogan doesn't ease into criticism. He charges through it like a rhino on Red Bull, with zero patience for performative virtue. To him, Kimmel isn't just another host. He's a fossil, a relic from an era when comedy was unapologetic and raw. Now, Kimmel feels more like a museum piece, polished, curated, and sanitized. What once made Kimmel relatable, his irreverence, his refusal to play by Hollywood script, has given way to sermonizing monologues and applause sign morality. To Rogan, this isn't just a shift, it's spiritual betrayal. Watching Kimmel transform into Hollywood's hall monitor feels like walking into your favorite dive bar and discovering it now serves kale smoothies and has live, laugh, love quotes on the wall. That's not evolution. That's selling out with a laugh track.
Just this past 2 weeks, they had the Kennedy Center honors the other night where Joe Biden couldn't say Dionne Warwick. He kept calling her Diane, and he didn't know who Barry Gibb was. He kept calling him Billy. You know who else was honored? At the Kennedy Center. You know who else? Billy Crystal. Just FYI, do you know who once opened up the Academy Awards in full blackface?
Oh,
Billy
yeah.
Crystal.
Oh.
Billy Crystal. And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah, as a fat-suited, black-faced, darning socks Oprah. Now, if you are of the left, that's fine. If you are of the right and happen to just say, hey, people used to wear blackface and nobody freaked out about it, you get fired.
Kimmel's so-called glow-up feels less like a transformation and more like a tragic parody. The same guy who once danced gleefully on the edge of cancellation now clutches a moral compass that always points to the loudest applause. It's not rebellion. It's PR Seminar 101 in a late-night suit. Meanwhile, Joe Rogan has a bloodhound's nose for BS, and he sniffed out Kimmel's new act from a mile away. This is an evolution. It's a full-blown career facelift. Edges sanded down, soul Botox into corporate compliance. Kimmel tries to keep a rebellious edge by slipping an occasional recycled political jab, but it rings hollow. Nothing says, "I'm still edgy," like punching safely between network-approved punchlines.
That sort of self-censorship and the idea of being a more empathetic person is a good thing, right? But as long as it's reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the problem with that kind of stuff is it continues to go in the same direction where more and more things become forbidden and toxic.
In Rogan's world, it's wild, loud, and unfiltered. Chaotic, sure, but at least it's real. People disagree. They argue, they clash, but no one melts into a puddle of fake outrage. That's the line Rogan draws, and he's calling out loud. Jimmy Kimmel, once the unpredictable wild card of late-night TV, now clings to Hollywood's safety net, like it's his emotional support blanket. To Rogan, it's crystal clear. Kimmel didn't just evolve. He traded raw punchlines for polished clout. The man who once thrived on being untamed now blends into the beige background like hotel wallpaper. It's like watching a 90s punk rocker become a Whole Foods wellness guru. Sure, he still cracks jokes, but they come with disclaimers, trigger warnings, and the sanitized soul of a LinkedIn post. What used to be punchy, fearless comedy now reads like a memo from HR. Late-night TV isn't edgy anymore. It's sterilized. It's algorithm-approved monologues, reheated punchlines, and politics on an endless loop. There's zero risk, zero spark. Rogan looks around and sees a sea of sameness, same polished smiles, same safe takes, same network-approved spice, with no actual heat. Late night didn't just lose its bite. It got fitted with baby-proof bumpers. And at the center of the playpen, Kimmel, Hollywood's head babysitter. Cue cards in one hand, moral outrage in the other.
The Elon Musk joking around about my pronouns are prosecute Fauci. Jimmy Kimmel made a tweet back to him. He said, "Your pronouns are ass and hole," which is pretty funny. But then,
Did he really?
Yes. And so then I read that, and there was people saying, "Please don't joke about pronouns. It's transphobic to joke about pronouns." So they were chiding him for participating in a joke about pronouns.
So Jimmy Kimmel was doing it. He was doing it too.
Yeah, he was doing it.
Just as the roast reaches its boiling point, in glides Megyn Kelly, not with Rogan's sledgehammer energy, but with the calm precision of a surgeon. While Rogan breaks down the walls, Kelly slices clean through the hypocrisy. She's not cracking jokes or throwing macho jabs. She's armed with facts and a scalpel labeled media hypocrisy. To Kelly, Jimmy Kimmel isn't just a comedian who lost his edge. He's a dressed-up mouthpiece, a designer sock puppet mouthing whatever the industry needs to protect its image. This isn't comedy anymore, it's choreography, and she's here to pull the curtain all the way back. In Kelly's eyes, Kimmel's transformation isn't just awkward, it's strategic. It's not personal growth. It's a calculated pivot straight out of a PR playbook. She sees a man who spotted Hollywood's virtue signal flashing in the sky and slapped on a moral compass like a sponsored badge. Kimmel didn't evolve. He rebranded, and Kelly's not buying the act. She's not here for the fake, deep empathy that conveniently forgets the past when it no longer fits the narrative.
We got the Sunday morning show with Stephanopoulos into the evening Academy Awards broadcast with Kimmel and ABC elevating, the blackface loving Kimmel. They, at the same time, fired Chris Harrison, host of The Bachelor, for trying to defend one contestant on, The Bachelorette for saying, gee, I know I went to this antebellum party, a couple years ago. I guess I didn't see anything wrong with it. And all he said was, are we judging her by today's standards, or are we judging her by, old standards, whatever. He was basically trying to say, are we being too hard on her? Got fired. Chris Harrison has to be fired by ABC. I don't know why, because he's not a committed leftist, because he's not out there more saying all the terrible things about Republicans that Jimmy Kimmel says. So this is them saying, we get it. We're an ally, right? And I guess maybe they're trying to make up with their racist past without ever acknowledging.
This is the same guy who built his empire on crude, bro-style comedy. Now suddenly trying to play sheriff of decency, but only when the cameras are on and the applause is guaranteed. Megyn Kelly points out the real plot twist. Kimmel's so-called redemption arcs always seem to line up a little too perfectly with contract renewals, almost like personal growth has been penciled into the script. But she doesn't stop there. Kelly pulls back the curtain on the real trick. Kimmel is preaching from a stage built on the very behavior he now condemns. And what does Hollywood do? Clap, not out of belief, but because he's useful, a polished tool in their optics and outrage machine. Kimmel plays his part like a seasoned pro, and the show goes on.
Yes, hypocrisy is alive and well amongst these sanctimonious leftists. From Kimmel to De Niro to Stephanopoulos, they want you to believe they're better than you, more virtuous, more decent. But we all know the truth. They lie. They sin. They do the very things they accuse you of and the things they say they would never do. Evil things. Like try to destroy people based on feigned outrage from which they spare their own side.
Hollywood loves a redemption story, so long as the redeemed sings the right tune. And Jimmy Kimmel? He's not just singing. He's belting out soprano notes like his next paycheck depends on it. But here's where it gets good. Rogan and Kelly doesn't just take aim at the man. She dismantles the machine. This isn't about forgiveness. It's about compliance. In Hollywood, you don't need a moral compass. You need loyalty to the script. Now, you've got two wrecking balls headed straight for the same target. Rogan rips off the mask and finds a hollow performer underneath. Kelly traces the strings and reveals a full-blown puppet show. She shines a spotlight straight through the smoke and mirrors, exposing the empty suit behind the media curtain. And the best part? They're hitting from different angles, but neither one misses. Rogan sees a raw, once authentic voice buried under layers of studio gloss and approval addiction. Kelly sees a calculated shapeshifter, someone who morphs just enough to ride each new wave of outrage without ever falling out of line. Together, they become the chaotic duo Hollywood never asked for, but definitely deserves. One swings a bat at the hypocrisy. The other files receipts with surgical precision. And honestly, the only thing missing is a jumbo bag of popcorn. Because let's face it, the comedy isn't even a problem anymore. It's the lack of effort. Kimmel went from pushing boundaries to babysitting them, like a nervous teacher on a field trip. His monologues now feel less like late night and more like lightly seasoned lectures. The punchlines are TED Talk-like, sprinkled between moral progress reports. Audiences didn't tune in for a weekly ethics seminar. They showed up to laugh. But somewhere along the way, the rebellion vanished, replaced by rebranding and applause you can practically hear being cued off-screen. And that's where Rogan and Kelly hit the jackpot. They're not just calling out Kimmel. They're pointing to the bigger issue. A comic who once mocked hypocrisy now delivers on a schedule. What's left isn't comedy. It's performance art with a moral filter and a contract extension.
They were saying that his tweet is transphobic.
Do you think that's in that case? Do you think that's him or a writer? Can't you tell?
Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah.
No, it's him for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
good. That's a good one.
He's a comic.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, he used to host the Man Show. I mean, he's done some pretty outrageous shit back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, for he-he's and ha-ha's.
No, that's a good joke on top of a good joke.
Yeah, it's a good joke.
Here's the kicker. The more Jimmy Kimmel tries to moralize, the more transparent it all becomes. Not because people hate morality, but because they can tell when it's been scripted, polished, and rolled out like a PR campaign. Every teary-eyed speech, every outrage-laced monologue feels less like heartfelt conviction and more like a boardroom draft. Tested by focus groups, edited for virality. It's not sincerity, it's strategy. Pre-packaged drama, ready to trend. And it's not just Kimmel talking. It's a committee-approved performance, dressed up as personal truth. The damage? It runs deeper than one man's credibility. Late-night TV has become a self-congratulatory echo chamber, so loud and so smug it can't even hear how ridiculous it sounds anymore. Joe Rogan, watching from his leather-clad bunker of beautiful chaos, wonders aloud. When did comedy become a PowerPoint presentation with applause breaks? Meanwhile, Rogan Kelly, probably sipping espresso in her media war room, watches the same slow-motion clown car crash unfold, night after night. And there's Kimmel, frozen in the middle like an NPC, non-playable, non-rebellious, just there. He doesn't need to say anything anymore. His silence now screams louder than his punchlines ever did. Because at this point, it's not about what Kimmel says. It's about what he's become, a punchline with no setup, a moral compass with sponsor, the lead actor in a show no one's laughing at anymore. Yes, he's still performing. But the audience, they've already moved on.
Now, I will tell you, he's not the worst. The Daily Show has the worst ratings. They only have 366,000 people watching that show. During the Jon Stewart years, it was over 2 million. Now it's down to 300,000. Seth Meyers, absolutely dreadful. He doesn't even have 1 million, 778,000. I mean, for network television, this is, you don't have to pay for it. It's there when you turn on your TV, you plug it in. That's a dreadful number. Greg Gutfeld on cable, which you do have to pay for, it has more than double the numbers of Seth Meyers. Jimmy Kimmel, 1.5 million averaging, also equally horrible.
And here's the real burn. Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly didn't even argue with Jimmy Kimmel. They didn't call him out by name or start a feud. They simply looked at the circus and called it what it is. A sitcom with no writers, a sermon with a laugh track. An empire once built on edgy irony, now pushing mass-produced morality at discount prices. It's giving the day the clown cried. But for ratings, Rogan, blunt like a philosopher with a sledgehammer, and Kelly, sharp as a courtroom prosecutor, both drag Kimmel through the same mess from different angles. And that's how you know the punchline isn't about jokes anymore. It's about one brutal equation: authenticity versus performance. Joe Rogan's brand is built on being unfiltered, messy, sometimes reckless, but always real. And in today's Hollywood, that might just be the deadliest trait of all. He never set out to be the crowd favorite, and that's exactly why people listen. He's not cuddly, not polished, and definitely not chasing likes. Meanwhile, Jimmy Kimmel? He's become a walking press release with eyebrows. Whatever raw, unfiltered spirit he wants, it got swapped for a cleaner haircut and a permanent seat on Hollywood's moral mountaintop, complete with perfect Instagram view. Watching him now feels like seeing a punk rock legend show up at a suburban PTA meeting in khakis, passionately arguing about the sugar levels in gluten-free cupcakes. It's weird. The guy who once roasted Hollywood is now Hollywood, branded, filtered, and repeating whatever sounds safest on TikTok that week.
You know, they want to shut me down on being on McAfee. They want to shut me up from.
Well, that was the Kimmel thing, right?
Well, no.
Did you ever talk to that dude? Have you ever talked to him?
I've been on the show years ago. Yeah.
Would you ever have a conversation with him in person?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, they wanted me to be on a show in the summertime after I got traded.
Really?
There, obviously been some things that he had said about me that made me go, I don't know if I want to do that. I'd rather.
Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly's
Kimmel
critique
didn't
of Jimmy
grow. He melted. He's dissolving into this lukewarm puddle of
illustrating a stark difference
fluff,
between
a
genuine
soft,
growth
shapeless
and the polished
blob made
illusion
to
of
soak up
evolution
applause,
that is becoming
not
more
challenge
common
anything.
in the industry.
Then in walks
To
Megyn
Rogan,
Kelly with
Kimmel
her
didn't
HR
grow.
executive
He melted into something softer, more pliable, a version of himself that
and a
no
file
longer
full
dares
of
to take
metaphorical
risks or challenge his
screenshots.
audience.
She's not
He's
amused
become
by
a
what
figure
Kimmel
who,
used to be.
instead of
She's
pushing
laser
boundaries,
focused on what he's turned
soaks up
into,
applause
a
and approval.
repackaged product,
Kimmel is no longer the
rebranded for
sharp,
mass
rebellious comedian
consumption.
of old.
To her, this isn't
He's
evolution.
now a product designed for mass consumption, crafted with care to maintain
It's
its relevance
strategy
within a
and
system
designer
that thrives on
packaging.
mediocrity.
It's not growth.
Megyn
It's
Kelly
moral
enters the
Botox.
conversation
It
with
looks
an even
smooth,
sharper
feels
critique,
fake, and
with her
needs
HR
regular
executive
maintenance
energy
to
and
stay
an
in
unblinking
rotation.
stare.
To get
Kelly assesses Kimmel's transformation as a calculated move. To her, this is an evolution. It's corporate strategy. Kimmel has been rebranded and repackaged to align with market demands, where growth is no longer about innovation or challenging the status quo, but about fitting neatly into a box that sells. His comedic edge is gone, replaced by moral Botox, something that looks polished, smooth, and attractive, but is ultimately artificial, requiring constant upkeep to stay in vogue. Together, Rogan and Kelly don't just tear into Kimmel. They drag the entire system that elevates him into the light. And this is where the real tragedy lies. Not just in Kimmel's transformation, but in the loss of genuine, biting comedy. Remember the days when a comedian could make you squirm, challenge your beliefs, or make you gasp with the audacity of their jokes. Those days are largely gone, replaced by a sanitized version of comedy that no longer takes risks. Instead of jokes that poke, prod, or criticize, we now get watered-down punchlines that are as safe as the brand they're designed to promote. Rogan questions the notion that this transformation is even necessary or justified. He reflects on his own experiences in leadership, where he demands quality work from his team, and how, despite being tough at times, he has always maintained a mutual respect with those he works with. In his world, performance and honesty are valued, even if that means giving blunt feedback. In contrast, the world of corporate media, exemplified by figures like Kimmel, has created a space where people are shielded from reality and conflict, where compliments flow freely and criticism is packaged in a way that doesn't hurt anyone's feelings. This is where Kimmel's ship becomes evident. His show, which was once about challenging norms, is now more about catering to masses, making sure that everyone feels good, even if it means sacrificing authenticity. Rogan sees the media circus for what it is, a shallow spectacle where ratings and applause are the ultimate currency, not meaningful dialogue. Kelly, with her calculated precision, delivers her critique without needing to shout or rely on bravado. Her approach is quiet but deadly. With one arched eyebrow, she cuts through the veneer of Kimmel's show, exposing the uncomfortable truth. The comedy industry, as they both point out, has lost its way. What we have now isn't comedy. It's a performance, carefully crafted and executed to align with ideological approval. We're no longer witnessing comedians daring to make the powerful squirm, but preachers in blazers reading from the gospel of what's socially acceptable this week. This shift didn't happen overnight, but Kimmel's transformation is a perfect microcosm of what has gone wrong in the world of late-night television. Whereas comedians of the past took risks, breaking taboos, questioning power, mocking the elite, now they toe the line, careful not to step on the toes of advertisers, celebrities, or the politically correct crowd. Kimmel's transition into this role of a smiling, non-threatening host is indicative of a larger cultural phenomenon, the professionalization and commodification of comedy. This isn't about standing up for what's right anymore. It's about staying in the good graces of the right people. The moment comedy became an industry, it lost its sharp edge, replaced by the sanitized version that now dominates our screens. Kimmel is a polished prototype of this new era of media personalities, safe, predictable, and unchallenging. His monologues are carefully crafted, designed to garner applause without causing any discomfort. He's a well-packaged brand, a build-a-host 2.0, stripped of the grit and anger that once defined late-night comedy. It's not about taking shots at the powerful anymore. It's about joining them, applauding them, and ensuring that every joke is approved by the powers that be. In this new world, the more polished and ideologically safe your content is, the more the media showers you with praise. On the other side, you have figures like Rogan and Kelly, who refuse to play the game. They're unfiltered, unpolished, and unapologetic. They don't pander to the elites or bow to the pressures of social media approval. They take on the system, exposing its contradictions and hypocrisies without the need for applause. Rogan's style is messy, chaotic even, but it's real. He asks the tough questions that make people uncomfortable. Kelly, with her cool, calculated approach, brings precision that can't be ignored. She doesn't need to scream. A well-timed glance or a pointed question is all it takes to cut through the noise. Together, they represent the kind of media that doesn't seek approval from the blue-check crowd, but instead pushes back, challenging everything the system holds dear. In contrast, Kimmel's performance is a far cry from what late-night used to represent. Late-night television once felt like a dive bar to a messy, unpredictable, and occasionally offensive, but always genuine. The humor was raw, and the hosts weren't afraid to ruffle feathers. Now it feels more like a corporate retreat, complete with tofu wraps and sanitized jokes. There's no risk. Anymore, no fire, no edge. The audience claps dutifully, desperate to convince themselves they've witnessed something profound, when in reality, they've been fed a carefully constructed narrative that aligns with whatever is trending that week. This isn't just about Kimmel losing his edge. It's about a larger cultural shift. The true art of satire and comedy have been replaced by a more polished, more palatable version that requires no real critical thought. The jokes no longer snap, they softly hum, offering no challenge to the status quo. The result is an industry that's no longer about questioning power, but about confirming it. Comedy has been declawed, its bite replaced by polite nibbling at the edges of society. The punchlines that once carried weight now land with the grace of a tofu piranha, harmless and hollow. What happens when comedians stop challenging the powerful and instead cozy up to them? You get a show like Kimmel's, where the jokes are safe and the applause is guaranteed. The moment comedy forgets who it's supposed to mock, the punchline doesn't just fall flat. It becomes tragic. It's like watching a clown who used to throw pies and cause chaos, now sitting daintily at a table, sipping herbal tea and nodding politely while the studio execs shower him with praise for being so brave. It's a far cry from the rebellious spirit that made late-night comedy great. This transformation isn't just about Kimmel. It's about the entire media landscape. The late-night hosts of the past, who would challenge, provoke, and yes, even offend, have been replaced by political operatives who deliver their monologues with precision designed to elicit applause, not laughter. The punchlines no longer make us think. They're there to reassure us that we're all on the same page, ideologically speaking. And in the audience, the claps come not from genuine appreciation, but from a deep need to convince themselves that they're part of something bigger than just another carefully crafted performance. Rogan and Kelly didn't just roast Kimmel. They exposed something much deeper. They stripped away the facade and revealed the shaky foundations of modern media. What they uncovered wasn't just a lack of humor. It was the erosion of authenticity. In this new media ecosystem, where growth is measured by how well you can please the right people and avoid controversy, the true essence of comedy has been lost. Rogan and Kelly, with their razor-sharp sarcasm and strategic insights, didn't need a shout to make their point. Their silence, the The moments where they let the truth hang in the air spoke louder than any punchline could. Next time you see Kimmel or any other late-night host delivering their well-crafted monologue, pause for a moment and ask yourself, are you watching a comedian or are you watching a commercial? The jokes used to be the point, but now they're just a sugar coating for the sermon beneath. If you're still laughing, Rogan and Kelly want to know, what exactly are you laughing at? This was a roast that didn't need a stage, no spotlight, no warm-up act. Just two sharp minds, one hollow brand, and a punchline that wrote itself. It wasn't just a takedown. It was a wake-up call for anyone who still believes in the power of genuine, unfiltered comedy.